Behind every great company is a great culture, and building a great culture is almost equally about what you don't do than what you do. In fact, the biggest killer of culture is probably when a company tries to emulate a larger brand in the hopes that they're going to scale because they're mimicking a culture that they think is great, and that rarely works. Today I want to go over the top killers of culture and a few ways any company can improve their culture in a way that helps their people feel like they're a real team with a real purpose. Okay, so business culture is different for almost every company that I work with as an owner, investor, or as an advisor. In fact, the biggest killer of culture is probably when a company tries to emulate the culture of a larger brand in the hopes that they're going to scale because they're mimicking a culture that they think is great, like Google or Facebook or Southwest Airlines or any large brand like that. I can't even begin to count, literally, the number of companies that have come to us for funding over the years who include culture as a big part of their pitch. And their definition of culture is usually something like, I don't know, free haircuts for their employees and free martini lunches and in-house massage therapists and nap rooms and large game rooms, whatever. All because those were perks that some large brands included in their employee benefits. So these smaller companies thought that they could attract better talent and scale faster if they copied the big boys. And again, doesn't work. And by the way, one of those owners who came to us for funding before came back to us for funding about a year after we passed on him the first time. And he was pitching a new company. And I had to pull him aside afterwards and ask him what happened to his other business. He blamed everybody. I mean, he blamed the economy, he blamed lazy employees, he blamed a bad business partner, all for that company going belly up, right? All those were the excuses. And those might have all been true, but his pitch that day was the same culture for his new company than it was for his past company. And unanimously, we passed up on funding him. Now, there's a few killers of scale that we all need to be aware of. And we need to check ourselves every once in a while to make sure that we don't get caught up in all the BS that we hear about companies growing for reasons like 32 flavors of coffee in the break room or foot massage Mondays or whatever the heck it is. Companies grow because they are led by great leaders who know how to build teams of confident, unified, driven people. But even great companies die or they become stagnant when they fail to focus, really focus on culture. And that might mean that their culture is out of date because it hasn't been focused on for a long time. Or it might mean that they simply outgrew their culture in scale, like they grew, and they didn't change their culture. Because the culture that got you to $1 million is not the same one that's going to attract A players that you need to get to 10 or 50 or $150 million. Don't get me wrong here. You rarely have to change your culture completely, but your culture has to be flexible. So what kills culture other than trying to copy larger brands? Well, one amazingly fast killer is when there's a team member who goes rogue, but they're still allowed to remain on the team. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is when someone on your team is no longer happy and they begin acting out or they begin doing a poor job. Now, you have to remember that everybody is always watching you. Your other team members are watching everything. And when they see somebody being allowed to give 70 or 50 or 30% at their job, when the rest of the crew is giving 100%, that becomes a virus, and it infects other people fast. It makes the rest of your team upset that you as a leader are allowing somebody to be on the team who is not fully on the team. They're not a full team player. And that begins to infect the culture and the team productivity and the revenue and the happiness and pretty much everything else in your company. And if left alone for a long enough period of time, and by the way, that long enough period of time might be a matter of a week or two. If left alone, that whole team is going to begin to perform poorly. And when asked, most of the time, those really good employees are all going to point the finger at that one person who started it all, like that one person who was poorly performing. Even though maybe that employee who was poorly performing before finally got let go, or maybe they bounced back and they became great again. That's great, but the fact is, once their attitude infects the team, it affects the culture and it drops your whole organization's performance down a notch. Even if they come out of their funk and they start performing great again, the fact that they were allowed to perform poorly without the rest of your team knowing that you were addressing it caused damage and it broke trust between you and them. They may not use those words, but that's what happens and it changes everything. So How do we prevent this in business? Well, first, as a team, we get very clear on the company targets and on the actions that every person needs to own in order for us as a team to be successful. And everyone buys into and they agree to those actions. Next, we hold regular accountability meetings with people so that they always know how they're doing, right? People have to know how they're doing. And we run performance reviews in our companies every quarter. And in those meetings, if somebody is not consistently reaching their targets, we have them sign a form so that they know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how important it is to stay on track. And then together, right, them and us, together, we decide on how I or the company can best help them reach their targets. Not by doing their work for them, but by putting them through a day of additional training. Or by maybe, if they need a day off, we give them a day off to get their personal life in order so that they can focus. Or maybe they need to role play. If they're a salesperson, maybe they just need to role play something. But whatever it is, they know that they need to reach their targets and that we're a team and we're going to support them to become the kind of person who reaches their targets on a regular basis. Now, if for some reason they go another month without reaching their targets, which rarely happens in our company, but if they go another month without reaching their targets, then we let them know that the company's moving forward fast. And we need somebody in their position who's going to take the actions needed to meet or exceed the targets for that department. Now, I may want it to be them, but if they're still not hitting their targets and it's affecting the rest of the team, then we need to find another job that makes them happier and that they're going to excel in. Now, another killer of culture is when the wrong people are hired or when the right people are in the wrong positions, which happens a ton, happens a real lot as we scale companies, because what we needed in a project manager, for example, when we were at 8 million, might be a lot different than what we need at 30 million. And that person is going to feel like we're asking the world of them because we need different things that are no longer in their core competencies. So part of scaling a company is knowing how and when to reallocate talent by either moving team members around into different boxes on your org chart, or by writing them a great recommendation letter, letting them find another job that suits them better while you put a more qualified person into that position. So those are just some of the fastest killers of culture. But I want to leave you on a really positive note with a handful of tips on how we could build cultures in your company, and how we build cultures time and time again in my companies. Cultures that make people love work, cultures that drive growth. So here they are. In my experience, culture is most strengthened by consistent meetings, whether it's annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, or all of those. Because our meetings give us the opportunity to attack obstacles as a team and celebrate wins as a team. And that's important, right? When we go through blood, sweat, and tears as a team to grow something, it bonds us and it creates culture. Culture is also strengthened when you choose staff rewards that are aimed at the family, like baskets of gourmet organic foods that you send to their home. Or one thing that we did that went over really, really well was we delivered a barbecue to one of our team members' homes because we knew that that family loved to host neighborhood barbecues, and that meant something to them. See, it's important that you know your team and their family, and then you pick rewards that show them how much they mean to you. When you put thought into it, that thought means far more than the gift itself. Now, culture is just a far larger topic than just one quick video like this. But those two tools work time and time again, and they've worked over and over and over the years, and are often overlooked by growing companies. So think to yourself for a second, what's the best culture building tip that you've come across in your years in business? And if you're watching me on YouTube right now, share it in the comment section below. And if you're hearing this audio on iTunes or another platform, then go over to YouTube and check out what everybody else is sharing about culture. And then subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on another video just like this.
No matter what stage of growth you're at, we all need an unbiased review of what's working and also what might not be working anymore in our business. Because the greatest cause of stagnation in any company, the reason most companies hit plateaus in their growth, is because they fail to see the roadblocks that stop momentum in its tracks.